Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer here on this beautiful February morning. Well, I guess it's afternoon now, probably. I am, of course, here with Valair Shabilla. Clay has decided that he wants to take the week off even before the season is starting. So we'll see how many episodes we get Clay for during the regular season and see who is on more, me or Clay. Valair, what do you think?
Definitely Clay. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
fair.
mean, I've done this show enough to know that you don't show up half the time.
That's unfair. But anyways, even though we don't have Clay, we do have a very special guest with us. If you do not remember, which I hope you remember, that Nashville FC does play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup starting next week, where Valair and I will be taking a trip down to Moca FC to watch Nashville in the Champions Cup. We have somebody that actually covers Dominican sports. He lives in New York now, but was born in the Dominican Republic. You could follow at Sports Dominican to get some more information. I went through some of the tweets about how excited he was to see Mocha FC in this competition, so that gets me excited. Ben Rodriguez, who covers Ben, it's so good to have you on this show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. So definitely looking to see how this matchup is gonna end up. It's exciting. It's really exciting.
And I think a lot of us here in Nashville, I guess, or just in the U.S. in the world, maybe don't know much about the Dominican Republic. It's a smaller country. It gets confused with the other countries around it. A lot of times, I feel like, especially with the influences culturally, language, all that. I want to hear your take of the Dominican Republic. What do you like when you are describing the Dominican Republic to other people? What do you say about it? What is that sort of elevator pitch for the DR?
Well, it's paradise heaven. It's like tropical weather. It's an island. It's beautiful. Our temperature ranges from about 80 degrees to 90 degrees. It could get a little warmer in the summertime, but it's really beautiful. I would say we have the people are amazing. The food is amazing. It's the number one travel country in the Caribbean in terms of tourism. So that's really big down in the DR. I mean, cigars are a really big industry now as well. Sports wise, I guess most people know the Dominican Republic in terms of their sports because Major League Baseball, a lot of Dominicans play in Major League Baseball. We have now a lot of players also in basketball. Um, but it's really a tourism hub, I would say, where people over 1 million people from Europe and the United States visit last year. So it's really big. It's a big industry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get, an understanding of a lot of the all-inclusive resorts, all that type of stuff when it comes to like what is the Dominican like? And for my perspective, I've actually been to the Dominican and worked in the Dominican a few years in a row. Actually have you'll appreciate I do have a Dominican. I can't see it with my thing, but I have a Dominican tattoo actually. So anytime I go to a different country, I get a new tattoo. And it was one of the things where it was such a beautiful country and time. And then even going, I was able to luckily go off resort where I was and get a little bit of an understanding of the culture and the people around. Very passionate group of people, they love their country, love the resources around it. And I have to assume that kind of translates into the sports, which is why I'm assuming you run the Sports Dominican account, and that's you like to keep up with what's going on in the Dominican when it comes to sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's absolutely 100% true. We love sports. We love anything that has to do with Dominican information. That's why I started Sports Dominican because anything that gets kind of published or anything that comes out from the Dominican Republic is published in Spanish. So any readers or anyone else that's looking to get any type of information about the Dominican Republic, you really are going to have a hard time trying to find that information. So I saw a little niche there where I was like, you know what, let me create a page where we can keep people informed or just people that would like to know more about, especially like a matchup right now with Nashville FC and Mocha FC, right? You're not going to find a lot of information, especially in English. So that's what we wanted to cover.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that because as someone I don't really speak Spanish. I don't know why I said it like that. I don't speak Spanish at all. But I tried. I had a 70-day Duolingo streak that I have recently lost. So we're gonna have to move on from that. But I try to get a lot of information on Mocha and especially with a smaller team, I guess, like Mocha, where it hasn't been they haven't been in these competitions often. It was pretty hard. But then your page came across, and I was able to get some more information about the club. So I'm very thankful for that. But kind of shifting a little bit, you already talked about baseball and the importance of baseball sort of in the DR. I want to know about soccer or football or whatever you call it. Really, what is soccer's place in the DR right now, and where is it going?
Yeah, so there was a big shift in 2014, 2015. So football in the Dominican Republic was played semi-pro level, I would say, up to 2015. That's when the LDF, or La Liga Dominicana de Football, came to be, or it was launched in 2015.
Oh
So
wow.
this is now a professional league. Yes, so this is a professional league now. Um, Soccer, well, we call it football, but football is really growing rapidly in the Dominican Republic. So one of the accomplishments, just to let you know, is in the Caribbean Cup, right? There is where the club teams, when they're champions in their respective leagues, they come out and they play in the Caribbean Championship Club, which is like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and it was really a competition that was dominated by the Jamaican teams and the Trinidad and Tobago teams. And then the Dominican Republic launched their league in 2015, and in 2017 they were already champions.
Oh wow.
So it took them, yeah, so it took them about 2 seasons to become champion. They repeated again. So I have the information here. When they repeated and they won the championships. Um, Sorry, I thought I had it in hands, but yeah, 2017, I believe 2018, and 2020, they were champions of the competition. So that tells you that uh, how popular the sports is growing, and it's really a sports that it's really taken over, I would say.
What are those teams? Because I'm assuming those teams were in Mocha, right? It was other teams that won those Caribbean Cups.
Correct. So Cibao FC was the first team to win the competition, the Caribbean Club um, Championship. That was in 2017. And they are kind of like the most successful team in the Dominican Republic. They are the current champions as well. Unfortunately, they were eliminated during the CONCACAF uh, competition that leading up to the qualification. And then now Moca is kind of like the only team that is still alive from the Dominican Republic. Also, Atletico Pantoja won the competition, which is the team that plays in the capital. So they're like the second most popular team as well in terms of um, fans and stadium and in championships. So Mocha hasn't won the domestic league yet. But they have come close. Last year they were in the finals against Cibao, so they're coming up as well.
Yeah, and to see a team, like that in the Champions Cup, it was this has been, so I've been following this National SC since, 2015 when the club actually started, a very small history. And then obviously Nashville grew into be an MLS squad. One of the reasons why I'm taking this trip to DR is just because of the fact of this is history for even Nashville to come down to a country like the champion and to be able to see us play a team in a different nation is something I never in a million years thought I would see. And we get to have a fun time in going to a spot like Mocha. And, it seems like a smaller community than what we're going to be used to normally when it comes to some of these stadiums. So what can we expect from Mocha, as the club, what is kind of the style of play? What is Mocha like? What can us Nashville fans expect from Mocha?
Yeah, so I believe that the game will be played at Cibao FC. It's going to be played in the second city of the Dominican Republic. I believe it's because of the international rules in terms of maybe Mocha Stadium doesn't qualify to host the international match. as of yet. Cibao FC stadium does. Some capacity is about 12,000. It was upgraded because Cibao FC played the Chivas of Guadalajara in this tournament. So
Okay.
I don't know if a lot of people know that information. So basically, natural fans should expect a very rabid and enthusiastic crowd because the fans from Moca are known to be really really loud, and they're just crazy about their team. Actually, the town of Moca is really where the sports is most popular, I would say. That is the Moca FC is the oldest team in the Dominican Republic. And they were the most successful in terms of the semi-pro league, which was called La Liga Mayor. They won the championship 13 times during that time. So they are the most successful in terms of championship. Of course, it's not recognized because it was a semi-pro league, and now the switch was made to the professional league. Like I mentioned before, they have won the tournament, but they have been successful.
So when it comes to obviously Mocha as the town, it's somewhat it's close to Santiago, right? Which is the city that the game is gonna be played on. Um, how how close
Yes,
is that? Yeah.
I would say it's not far at all. Maybe about 14 miles. The
Oh,
cities are
okay.
apart, so it's really not a big commute. So you're going to definitely see a big crowd show up. When Chivas traveled to the Dominican Republic in 2018, Cibao Stadium only holds about 6,000 fans seats. It was upgraded to 10,000. Those seats sold immediately, and
Wow.
then it reached capacity up to like 12,000. So you're definitely going to see a big crowd. I mean, like I said, Mocha, this is the first international matchup for Mocha, so I expect the home crowd to really turn out.
And that's what I was gonna ask you next in terms of events, in terms of club history when you're looking at Mocha or the Dominican Republic soccer as a whole. Where does this rank? How high up the list is this game against Nashville SC?
Of course, it's pretty high because I mean, like I mentioned, soccer is really growing so much in the country. It is rapidly, I would say, is the fastest growing sports right now in the Dominican Republic. You see kids playing in school, in the parks. The clubs are doing a wonderful job, are creating academies and bringing those young kids into the fold. In terms of the game itself, like I mentioned before, Cibao has played Chivas. Atletico Pantoja played on the Red Bulls as well in the capital. So this will kind of be like the third time actually that you will have a team from outside and such a big team, right? One coming, Red Bulls from the U.S. and now Nashville coming from the U.S. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting for a country that's looking for a way to market its football because that's the challenge is growing the sports now. The federation has done really really well. They qualified for the U20 World Cup Championship in this past year that was hosted in Argentina. Played a great matchup against Nigeria. They were expected to get blown out. They lost 2-1, qualifying for the Olympics. So it's really becoming something to cheer on. Soccer is becoming huge.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love hearing that. I love seeing the youth tournament stuff too. That's always where it starts from. The movements kind of start back there, and then the players as they grow, they kind of end up playing for the national team, right? So really cool to see. Let's get a little bit more into the soccer. I don't know how big of a fan soccer are you? Like what is your soccer? Do you watch just the Dominican Republic stuff, or are you a soccer watcher overall?
No, I try to follow all sports. Anything related to sports, I like to follow. So I follow a little bit of the Premier League, also La Liga in Spain, a little bit of the MLS as well. Since New York FC now, they won the championship as well. couple of years ago. There's a new stadium coming up in Queens. That's going to be their home base now as well.
Yep.
So I've always had friends that were from different part of the country, different countries, like Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, and they all like crazy football fans. So I definitely had to learn a little bit to just keep up with the conversations. So I like to keep up, in terms of anything that has to do with sports, especially
and so
soccer now.
for Mocha specifically, I haven't done any sort of deep dives on their roster or anything, but just a quick look. It doesn't seem like there's, the big stars or anything like a huge star, in their roster. No disrespect, of course, they earned their stripes and they're there in the competition. But can you tell us a little bit about those players, maybe their backgrounds? We know that they were all professionals because of what you said with the league switching to professional about a decade now ago. So who are those players? Are they mostly Dominican? What can you tell us about the squad and maybe the manager as well?
Yeah, so the manager, his name is Maximiliano Vieira. He's from Uruguay. Actually, this is his first season. He was just hired a couple of months ago to be the head coach.
Wow.
So in terms of play style, from what I read about him is that he likes to play defense. He likes to play defense and counterattack. So that's his style of play. So that's what I would see. Most of the times, that's how the Dominican teams have played when they play international big clubs. They have kind of defended first and then try to counterattack. So I respect the same thing. I don't know if it's because they're a little nervous, they don't know what to expect. It's a bigger club, right? So I guess that comes into play, that type of psyche mentality. But it's hard to keep up to because with a team style play, because when the manager's switching, we don't know what to expect as much as that. In terms of the players, Odalis Baez, which is the main goalkeeper, he's a veteran. He's played with Cibao. He's played with Atletico Pantoja, which is the second winningest team in DR. So now he's playing with Moca, and he's a very good goalkeeper. So Nashville is going to have to work to try to score against him. I would expect a good game from him. Juan Angeles Cruz is a striker. He's a very good player for Moca. They just signed a player by the name of Roberto Luima. He's also a striker. He's Haitian descendant player. He's a very good striker as well. So I do expect them to try to score as well. I expect them to try to move the ball around and try to score on Nashville, because from what we read about Nashville is that they also try to defend as well. They're like a defensive team. They try to be defensive. So maybe the game is going to be low scoring. Who knows?
Well, you
Someone's
definitely
gonna attack.
Yeah, you read that right. That is absolutely when Blair and I were laughing, where we're like, "Oh crap, this is going to be one of those defensive counterattacking games." If that's exactly what Nashville is like as well, and has been like that for years. So look, selfishly, Ben, we've talked. Blair and I are making the trip to Santiago for the match. Again, we're super excited for it. We need some kind of recommendations here. Like, what are the things that we should be doing and seeing in the DR when we are there? Is there a food that we should be eating that is definitely we're not going to be able to get anywhere else besides the DR? Is there anywhere else in Santiago we should go see? Before we kind of wrap up, can you give some of the people that are also going some suggestions?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would definitely want to visit the monument in Santiago. It's a nice tourist area. People always go there taking pictures. You definitely learn some of the history around it. Duarte Park is also a very nice scenery park. You just take a stroll around. There are some factories, cigars factories that are like giving tours as well. Cigar business is really big in the Dominican Republic. I guess second to Cuba, I guess I would say. Some people say they're kind of equal now. But yeah, you definitely want to take a tour of that. In terms of food, tres golpes, which is like mashed plantains with sunny side of eggs and a Dominican fried cheese. So if you have high cholesterol, I wouldn't recommend it. But you definitely want the authentic thing. To drink is called Mori Soñando. Definitely have one of those. Um, and a pica pollo. If you go around and say, "Hey, where can I find a pica pollo?" They're gonna point to the right direction. It's like a fried chicken with flour and things like that. So served with tostones, which is fried green plantains. So you're gonna definitely enjoy it.
All I heard was fried chicken and fried cheese. So I am 1000%. So
Yeah,
if I die there,
I
that's perfectly fine, Valer.
I will not be caring about my cholesterol for this trip. It's only a few days, it's gonna be fine. But yeah, we're very excited to go. Steve and I are lucky enough to be able to head there, get to witness this live. I think it's gonna be a really, really cool event. And I think this is what soccer is about. So I moved. I'm from Iraq, and I moved here to the United States when I was 14. So kind of similar to your story, where we were born somewhere else and came to America. But I think sports and soccer specifically, or football, kind of connects us this way. So I'm ready to learn about another country, another city, just simply based on their soccer team and their soccer history. So really excited about that. Well, thank you for the recommendations. Before we kind of wrap this up, is there anything else you would like to share? I'm not saying we have like a million people listening, but some people in Nashville are listening to this for sure. So, is there anything else you'd like to share about the DR or Santiago or Mocha, or about yourself, or about anything?
Yeah, so I mean, just so like you mentioned before, like at the beginning of the show, that not a lot of people know a lot of facts about the DR, and they kind of get the country confused and things like that. So I just wanted to give you quick history, a little bit of the background in terms of the DR. So Santo Domingo is obviously the capital of the Dominican Republic. Um, it was founded in 1492, and it's also the oldest European settlement in the Americas. This also makes Santo Domingo the oldest city in the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
First hospital, first university. So it's a city of first, so interesting facts. It's also home to the city colonial city, which is it's really located in the capital in Santo Domingo. So it's about 3 hour drive, maybe 4 hour drive. So I guess you guys will not be able to visit this time around. But definitely a place to check out as well. A very fun fact to know is that this town, the colonial city town, was laid out on a grid pattern that became the model for almost all the town planners in the New World. So think about that, right? That's just an amazing fact about the DR, and a little bit of facts that I just wanted to share with you guys. And the last one is in the 1990, Santo Domingo was declared by World Heritage, a site by UNESCO, and also in 2010, Santo Domingo was selected as the cultural capital of the Americas. So those are fun fact about the Dominican Republic.
I love it. And I know Valer secretly loves like city and road design, so I know he's extremely happy about that. That's great. And then again, you could go follow what Ben does if you want to learn and continue to follow about Dominican sports. Follow Sports Dominican on Twitter. And Ben, before we wrap up, normally what we do at the end of our show is we give predictions to the score. So why don't you give us a prediction of in Mocha or in Santiago for that match? What's going to happen?
So really, I mean, just to like I can keep this interesting, I would say 1-1 draw. And then I think when we come to Nashville, I think we'll lose 2-1.
Okay. Wow. Realistic.
Just to be realistic.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Don't worry, that's probably going to be way more accurate than our predictions ever will be. So you're perfectly fine. Ben, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining and being on the show with us and teaching us all about the Dominican and Mocha. I know, again, a lot of us are very excited, and we have a lot of good suggestions now. And yeah, so we're going to come back. We're going to go on a little break. We're going to come back and we'll talk a little bit more about some of Nashville SC's new signing, and kind of what's coming up still with preseason. And we'll do that right next year on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at Pharma Soccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can also support the show by our Patreon. If you go to our Patreon at Pharma Soccer, or I think it would be /Pharma Soccer, patreon.com/Pharma Soccer. It really does help keep the lights on, helps support the show. We want to keep doing this, especially throughout the season. And the Patreons really do help us do a lot of cool stuff. So please make sure you're keeping up with that. Please join. It's only $5 a month too. We would love for you to help join.
And Stephen,
Valair.
I have some good news.
Oh, what's that?
We have a new Patreon member.
What? We have a new one?
I know. I didn't even put it on the rundown because I forgot, but now I remembered because you said Patreon. So a huge shout out to Christopher. Not going to say your last name because I'm not supposed to, but Christopher, thank you for joining the Patreon on Tuesday, February 6th. We appreciate it. He became one of the many over a certain amount of number of Patreons out there. So thank you to Christopher. We appreciate it. Be like Christopher.
I also love that we get to decide what is private, and we're gonna let everybody know that Christopher, specifically on this one day in time, that's when he did it, but everything else is private.
Well, yeah, I don't want to say his last name. I don't know what he wants and doesn't want out there, but I want him, because Christopher is such a common name, I want him to know that it's him, to that Christopher specifically, you know? It's not any other Christopher.
I want you to deep dive after this show and let me know how many Christophers we actually have as Patreon subscribers, and we could go from there.
No kidding. I think we have 4 Brians. I'm not even joking. I don't know how many Christophers we have, but I don't know. It might be more than one. Anyway.
Well, speaking of Isaiah, let's. Yes, I understand. That was the joke. That was the joke. Is that was not who we were talking about, but I figured I would find a segue that was perfectly fine. Nashville had a preseason match last week, and before that, we announced our second homegrown signing ever, which is always fantastic. We knew that it would take time for Nashville to build up this kind of academy. There were some predictions that this player would be the one that is signed to Nashville SC as an academy player. And he's our second homegrown ever in Nashville history, and that's Isaiah Jones.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see another homegrown for Nashville SC. This is a local kid who is from Thompson Station, which is right outside Franklin and Spring Hill, kind of in the middle of those two cities. Originally, he is from Sierra Leone. He was adopted here, but he wasn't adopted alone. He was adopted with a bunch of his brothers and sisters. And I believe there are 5 of them. I'm not positive on that. Maybe there's more. His older brother, Malachi, he was drafted number 1 overall in the MLS draft to NYCFC. So obviously that was really awesome. He played for Lipscomb. Isaiah was part of the NSC Academy since the U15s, played with the U17s as well, featured for Huntsville a few times last season. So he's been around, the first team and has trained with them before. He's 17 years old. It's really cool to see this sort of local signing. This family has, been around soccer in Nashville a lot. They also have a couple other siblings who play collegiate sports. So, there's a lot of there's a lot of Joneses out there playing soccer and doing soccer things. So it's really awesome to see another one rewarded with a homegrown contract. For Isaiah himself, he's a midfielder, pretty big presence. He's really good at intercepting play, getting the ball out of the opponent. His own words, he wants to improve going forward. He wants to improve that second phase of play. But I think it's awesome to see a 17-year-old midfielder. That's usually a little bit, it's not a winger, it's not a striker, right? Not to make those easy, not that those positions are easier, but midfielders, that they're put under a lot of pressure and they have a lot of accountability and responsibility on the pitch. So for him being a 17-year-old who's going to play a lot of minutes for Huntsville this upcoming season, I think is going to serve him a lot. And then who knows, maybe we'll probably not going to see him with Nashville this season. Chances are he won't play any minutes for Nashville, but there's a good chance maybe next year. And obviously, depending on what happens with the Open Cup, we might see him in that as well. So really, really excited for him. Second homegrown player. And just based on how things are going, we'll probably get to see a couple of these maybe every year or every other year.
Yeah, which is fantastic to see. You see a lot of these teams, really develop a lot of a lot of the really good teams develop players from the ground up. You see Dallas has one of the better soccer academies that has developed a lot of talent. Salt Lake, Seattle, they have developed a lot of their own talent when it comes to players. So it's really good to see Nashville kind of start that train, no matter how long of a road it's going to be. I would love to be able to see both Jones and Sipage at some point during the first team, which would be great. But it's going to take time for these players to develop.
Yeah, and just like you said about like other teams developing talents, like we see somebody like Philadelphia develop talents to sell them. That's how good their talent level is that they have players out there in Europe playing. Now, I don't want to set this as the success rate for an academy. If you develop an academy player who gives you 4 or 5 years as a professional athlete, and gives you that cover on the depth chart, or maybe he's a starter for your team for 3 or 4 seasons, that in itself is so much cheaper than buying that piece from the market, whether internationally or internally here in MLS. So it's not like, oh, this kid made it to Europe and that's successful and anything else is not. It's quite the opposite. I think anybody who plays valuable minutes for Nashville SC and is on that roster who has been developed by the academy is a success story and opens up so much cap space, as well as just is cheaper in real money, not even cap money. And I think that's just something to keep in mind when we're ranking these sort of academy products, especially now going forward, where we're going to see more of them for Nashville.
And on that same day that Isaiah Jones was announced, Nashville did have a friendly against Birmingham, which was open to the public during the day. Probably actually the first friendly that I remember actually having, in Nashville specifically, as one that was open to the public, which is great to see. It gives Nashville the ability to kind of have a test run with the stadium stuff and kind of what's going on, which it does seem like they are doing because they did have VAR used in this friendly against Birmingham Legion, which is funny to me. Unfortunately, Clay decided to not be here, which is ridiculous because he was at the match. So, but it seemed like from the response to it that it was a favorable and positive response from the fans, and there was a decent amount of people there that filled one side of the full lower bowl just to see their team during the day.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was open to the media and the public, and this is the first ever preseason match in the MLS era that has been open, actually. The only other preseason match that was open to public was in USL days. So really cool for Nashville SC. I think it's a positive thing. Like you said, I think it kind of gave the fans what they've been asking for and wanting. I was more interested in kind of what was happening on the pitch, but also obviously it's a cool story seeing everybody show up. There were a few storylines. I think the biggest thing is Nashville won 3-2. We should start with that probably.
Which I actually think it's a pretty big storyline. I think 3-2 is actually a pretty big storyline in itself, based on the fact that we were down at one point as well, correct? We were down before halftime 2-1, I believe.
Yeah. So Nashville, scored goals, but the 2 goals they gave up were pretty sloppy. Even if you weren't at the match, if you go to the Birmingham Legion Twitter, you'll see those goals posted. Nashville didn't post the goals that they conceded, of course. They posted the goals they scored, so you can see kind of both sides. It's pretty sloppy in defense there for Nashville SC. But you know what? This is what the preseason is for. This is literally what these games are for. Not to mention, obviously, the sort of injuries and all that. So we got an update on Randall Leal. Actually, I might as well give that. We're looking at 4 to 6 weeks probably with Randall, which is not great. We talked the last 2 shows. We spent 15 minutes on Randall Leal, so I don't want to keep going. But yeah, go listen to those shows if you want to know my take on it.
Yeah, last week was definitely, we didn't even have the ability to get an understanding of the injury, but then to be another 4 to 6 weeks without Randall Leal is extremely unfortunate, and definitely something that Nashville's going to have to look to in the future. And they obviously have with a signing that we'll talk about here in a second. But I do think a couple other big storylines when it comes to that friendly match. Sam Surridge finally gets on the score sheet with a brace. During this friendly, I think Gary Smith has made a lot of comments about how Sam Surridge has come in prepared, ready to go for this season to start. It seems like he's had some really good minutes in the friendlies itself, and he scored two, which is really good to see. Also, Valair, the other score was not somebody related to the team, but was a trialist, correct?
Yeah, so Julian Gaines, who is Mackenzie Gaines' younger brother, is one of the trialists with NSC at the moment. We haven't heard whether or not he's getting signed, but he did score that goal in the friendly. I can only imagine that helps his chances of being signed. Maybe even if not with Nashville, maybe with Huntsville. But these trialists generally, as we've spoken about in the past, generally they don't get the contract. So when they do, it's a big deal for them, of course, and a lot of times it pans out for the club, right? But the only reason we know as Julian Gaines, well, obviously the thousands of people there who were kind of searching Google, but also on Broadway Sports, we had a story. Ben Wright and one of the photographers who was there was able to just take a bunch of pictures, and Ben Wright was able to kind of, it was a collective effort, maybe with Chris and others, and we're able to kind of reveal the identity of those trialists. So if you're curious who's trialing with NSC right now, at least at this moment, you can go to Broadway Sports and see that article. The other kind of big news story to come out of this, not really big news story, it's just kind of a technical thing. Drew Yearwood was playing higher up the pitch. He replaced Hani Mukhtar and was kind of playing as effectively the 10. He was pretty lively in that position, seemed to be able to kind of create some chances. Obviously, it was against Birmingham Legion, so I don't want to, call him the next Hani Mukhtar by any means, but it would be interesting to see him slot into that number 10 role, because I don't think any of us have him doing that.
Well, and there's a lot of interesting things that come out of that because one, Hani Mukhtar started off playing more back before he became an offensive player, and Steve Guppy gets a lot of credit for doing that with Hani. Maybe they saw something in Drew Yearwood that he could be one of those same guys that kind of helps. And I have to assume the Leal injury is also going to play into the fact of Drew Yearwood being able to play, a little bit more up as well. So we'll see kind of what happens there. I know in that trialist, in the trialist article on Broadway, one of the trialists we had a USL connection with that one time, correct? And that would be wasn't Connor Sparrow there to try out for
Connor
Nashville?
Sparrow, yes. Yeah, the goalkeeper, Connor Sparrow, obviously played for Nashville SC. He was the backup to Matt Pickens. Matt Pickens is currently the goalkeeper coach for Nashville SC, who was the goalkeeper in USL days. So Connor Sparrow, he's younger. I think he's no longer younger, but he was younger than Matt. He's younger than Matt Pickens, but you get what I mean. I think he's 29 or so now. But he's trialing with NSC as well. I don't know if that's going to lead anywhere, but it's nice to see sort of familiar faces for NSC folks. But even away from Connor Sparrow, Nashville SC did have another trialist who was signed at one of those rare occasions, and I think I'm going to spare you the pronunciation, Stephen, and I'm going to do it myself because I'm not sure if you can pronounce it. But it's Amar Sejdic. Amar Sejdic.
I was gonna mess it up. I don't know if I would get even close to Sejdic. I would have said like Sijdic or something like that, and I can't say it. Yeah. Anyways.
You probably can't say that on air. I mean, it's whatever. But Amar Sejdic, he's the newest signing with Nashville SC. He was one of the trialists from the preseason. Midfielder, seems like a really good piece on the depth chart. He spent the last few seasons with Atlanta United and played a good bit of minutes. I mean, you're looking at about 1,000 minutes or so, which is not a little bit.
That's a decent amount of time. I mean, that he made a lot of starts for Atlanta where, I mean, that's kind of the piece that we're looking for when it comes to I think this signing, even though he was a trialist, I think is a little bit bigger than we're giving credit for because we've been talking about what that midfield depth is going to be like. And now, especially with Randall Leal and his, questioning his position, we kind of needed that depth. So I think it's a bigger signing for Nashville than we even give it credit for.
I think so too. And then just simply from sheer minute sharing purposes, you're looking at, Anibal Godoy, Sean Davis, Drew Yearwood, Brian Anunga, and now Sejdic. So you're looking at 5 players for those 2 positions instead of 4 players for those 2 positions, which is honestly, for the amount of games Nashville is playing, is probably for the best. The other thing is that even if Sejdic himself doesn't get on the pitch a whole lot, he is going to be competing with Brian Anunga. He's going to be competing with even Sean Davis and Anibal Godoy and Drew Yearwood for those starting spots. So, it's just an added sort of motivation to the squad, if anything. And I don't want to take anything away from him. Again, he started in MLS. He knows the league. He's not old or anything like that. So he has that experience, but still is just a veteran player on a fairly cheap salary. I think it's a really good move, and Nashville needs that. We might see another trialist get signed before the end of the window. Honestly, I don't know. You can add MLS players to your roster until like April. So, I don't think Nashville SC are in desperate need. But I would say that maybe the injury for Randall Leal maybe sped up the process to sign Amar Sejdic.
Right. And with that, I mean, look, the preseason schedule is almost wrapped up. We have one more preseason match that is a friendly against Memphis 901, which is behind closed doors, unfortunately. So we're only getting the one preseason match that is open to the public. That one is at Giotos, though, even though it is closed, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And then a week later, as we talked about in the first segment, Valair and I will be in the DR, ready to go for our first Champions Cup match against Moca FC. Any other news that we do need to talk about, though, relating to soccer when it comes to Nashville?
Just real quickly, this is not Nashville directly, but this is a Huntsville update. The schedule is out for Huntsville, so if you're planning to make it down there, they have the schedule out. A couple sort of dates I'm gonna mark there for folks from the NFC days, the Nashville Football Club days. Not me, but for those folks like Stephen and others. Chattanooga FC is in MLS Next Pro, and so is Huntsville. So there's going to be some Chattanooga, Nashville games again in a different league, in a different view. I know, but it's still that club and it's still that club. So,
gosh, if I could make it back and I mean, look, the amount of arguments that we got with Chattanooga FC folks about, oh no, we're not going to sign up for the man. This is ridiculous. And now you're in MLS Next Pro. Oh God, it irks me. All right. Anyways.
So the home opener or the very first game of the season for Chattanooga is against Huntsville, and it's on March 16 in Chattanooga at Finley Stadium there. Pretty nice stadium. I actually watched a game there once. Why did I go there? I can't tell you.
It was a friendly. It was a friendly of some sort. I remember this. It wasn't it like a bigger team playing Chattanooga that was a friendly there? What?
Maybe I didn't go to that. Atlanta United played there, if that's what you're thinking about.
I think
I wasn't there for that. I don't know why I was there. I don't know. I've been there. Pretty okay stadium for a third division team. And then Chattanooga visits Huntsville on April 40th. So if you are, wanting to go see what Chattanooga's up to, you can catch them in Huntsville. But not only Chattanooga, of course, they're hosting a bunch of other, all the other Eastern Conference MLS Next Pro teams. There's some really exciting ones out there, and of course Huntsville. I have yet to make it down there, but I know I promised last year and I didn't go, so I'm gonna promise that this year I make it to at least one game in Huntsville.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with that, God, I didn't think about anything to make as a prediction for for the plugs or whatnot. Actually, I have an idea, and I don't know how bad it is. If you want to before you make your plugs and everything, predict what is the first match we'll actually see Randall Leal in. That would be terrific, Flair. So please go through the schedule, let me know.
That's
But before I do,
so sad.
I know
Yeah.
it is unfortunate. But before I do that, I do want to talk about next week. Next week is the episode that is right before the start of the regular season, which is our favorite episode of the year, which is our prop bet episode. So please, 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 please make sure you do tune in next week. Tell all your friends to tune in next week. We always get excited for this, and I'm still deciding if I'm actually going to take this year seriously or not. To see. And I believe we'll also have Omari on the show as well to make his predictions as well. So it'll be a lot of fun. So please make sure you tune in to our biggest preseason episode of the year. We're excited for it. Season's starting and we're almost ready to go. So Valair, why don't you finish up the show, give us your plugs, and then what is the first match we'll see Brandon Leal play in?
Really, really wild thing to be guessing, but I'll go ahead and say Randall Leal will play against Philadelphia at home on April 6th. And that's going to be the very first appearance for Randall Leal this season. There you go. I know it's a little pessimistic, but that's just what I'm vibing with at the moment. So, I'm sitting in a dark room. It's kind of rainy, so I'm not positive at the moment. And in terms of plugs, at Valair Shabilla, I have some really cool things coming out, y'all. So make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Valair Shabilla. And YouTube, I'm just gonna reiterate the YouTube portion of this. Subscribe at Valair Shabilla on YouTube. I only have like 12 subscribers, so I just started it. But anyway, go subscribe. And then I already did my prediction. So yeah, I don't know. Go to kicknet615.org. Thank you.
I will say that a lot of when people give warnings of oh, I have some cool stuff coming out, check it out type of things, that's normally not as cool as you think it was. Valair actually does have a lot of cool things coming out. That's not even a lie. So please make sure you are following all of Valair's stuff. I'm going to use my plugs to plug Valair because I also don't have anything to plug. So at PHStephenHD on my Twitter. But please go check out Valair's stuff and KNet615, of course. I'm a little bit more pessimistic than Valair as well when it comes to Randall Leal. My match I think he's going to play in is away at Inter Miami on April 20th. So it would be the next match after the one against Philadelphia that Valair has. So again, next week, prop bet episode. Please make sure you tune in and pay attention to that. Thank you again, Ben Rodriguez, for joining the show. We really appreciate it, and we really appreciate all the Dominican Republic information. We're looking forward to being down there in Moca next week. And we will be back next week for the prop bet episode. So thank you again so much for listening, and have a great rest of your week.